James, from your experience at Rolls-Royce, which can potentially be perceived as product, as a main product company, and there is a service element to it, whereas Manchester Airport is more of a service element. There is very less of the product that you control. Apart from the maximal difference of, Maximo being better with a better version at Manchester Airport, did you find any cultural differences in maintenance at Rolls-Royce versus Manchester Airport?
Yeah, I would say from a cultural difference, again, if you work in a large engineering company, you're surrounded by engineers. You're surrounded by people that have that
Absolutely.
tools, that knowledge, that insight of how to look for things and do things. So there was, subject matter experts across a range of different fields, whether that was vibration analysis, whether that would be thermography. We had, a very privileged position to have multiple specialists all over the world available to you at any point in time. Also, the brand carries a lot of power. When you say Rolls-Royce, there's a lot of suppliers that want to come and try things and see things and do things. So your ability to work with a range of different suppliers to come and look at the latest technology, they all want to showcase things to you and come and share that. Now, the difference then into MAG are fantastic with technology and some incredible ambitions to go and look at how do we innovate in that space. And they're on an asset stewardship journey, and that is a journey that they've been on now for about 4 years, heavily invested into this journey. But the big change really is the cultural shift, the shift from how we, once maintained the asset when it failed to a proactive space to look at ahead of that, using all of the kit that we've got coming at us and really helping us to predict a failure. And that whole purpose of that is to have zero impact on our passengers or our customers. With these millions, our cargo operation is actually larger than our passenger operation, but they're driven very equally in terms of priority. The last thing I want is to have any passenger turn up and not be able to get into the car park, or not be able to drop their bag off, or have a slow or a poor experience through security. So it's a very different mix, because the cultural shift here is all about how do you feel when you go through an airport. Does it smell right? Is the right temperature? Does it, is it well lit? Do you feel relaxed? And then ultimately, a happy customer, are they going to go and enjoy themselves, spend a little bit more money in our airports, and then also want to come back and use our airport?
James, so I think we've already touched on this. I just want you to reiterate it. But obviously, a lot of particularly first-time software buyers, that they're going to believe that they put in a maintenance system in place, it's going to fix everything. But obviously, that's not the answer. What do you feel needs to be set up correctly in place first before any sort of selection or implementation of a maintenance system can take place?
Yeah, so I think if you're buying any CMMS, the first thing to fix is, or the first thing to be very, very cautious of and aware of, is a CMMS will amplify any problems or process issues that you already have. So if you've got a poor process and poor data, and you might buy the best CMMS system you can get your hands on, that CMMS system will amplify the issue that you've got. So you have to fix your core fundamentals first. So having a really good structure, really good process, making sure your data, the data that you have in your system is good and reliable and believable, is fundamental before you go and enhance any of that. And there's no, one of the biggest risks you have is that if you buy the wrong system, it's like the biggest risk you actually have is you're buying the right system that nobody will use. So if you might spend millions on buying this fantastic system, but if nobody uses it, it's worthless. And that's the kind of bit is, get your team involved, get your engineers, get your maintenance staff involved in what do they want to have to make their roles easier, and for them to see value in that tool. And that will help you guide you on the right equipment to go and buy. And, that is probably the big thing I would say back here is, don't be sold into the nice AI shiny bits over here, because your fundamental core bit needs to work.
Sure.
Yeah, and I suppose having that team involved from the outset also helps with user adoption, that field adoption.
100%.
You need making sure there's no workarounds.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to have the SMEs of that tool need to sit within your team as a maintenance team. If the person that they can't, they need to be able to turn to the person in their team and go, show me how to do this. I can't remember how to do that, or I can't log on to here. You need to have the SMEs embedded in your team, feeling ownership of that tool and feeling proud of the tool. If it's a tool that is forced upon them and they don't want to use it, then one, culturally, you'll find that there'll be workarounds, and you'll find that your data in there will be very, very weak and it'll be poor. And you won't be able to use the things that you want to. You may have bought the tool for, which is all the AI stuff in the future and the predictive maintenance, and none of that will work if your base documents and information is poor. So get your right standards in place, get the teams involved, and just remember, whatever system you put in, if it's poor, the CMS will amplify that poor data, and it will really visualize how bad it is. And I think that's sort of one of the things that I found at joining East Midlands Airport was that is sort of uncovered through our program. The good news is we already kind of knew that it was there, but having that ability to then find it and fix it, and really pleased to say we've fixed it now, and we're now into the optimization stage of that data to go and really think about what's the right work order to put, or what's the right planned maintenance process to put against these assets. And some of them may be run to fail, and that's fine. That's a good structure for certain asset groups, but others are condition monitoring because they're critical. So it's defining that right process in place. And if you're working in an enterprise or a group, make sure you've set that out across your group so that you can return on your investment across the enterprise, not just at individual factory level.
Yeah, and I think you're in an incredible position as well, James, to give some advice to those maintenance managers who are now looking and they're selecting or implementing process of either getting a asset maintenance system in or EAM system in as well. You've been through the new asset tagging implementation at MAG. What are the 3 things that someone really needs to get right before any of that selection process begins?
Yeah, it's probably going back to what I said, data. Clean your data first. You have to have good, clean data. Ensure that engagement is in with the end user, and almost become subservient to them, knowing what they want and how they want it to be done. And then invest as much money in change as you're investing in technology. Don't just think you're going to buy the best kit, it's going to work. You have to invest in change. You have to put that change management theory in place, whether that's culture, whether that's process. You have to invest within both of those. And I think really kind of closing that out is, a CMMS is as much of a business change program as it is an IT program. And I think that's where a lot of companies get it wrong. They think about an IT deployment tool, they chuck it over the fence and go, get on with it. And it's not that at all. You have to have those fundamentals in place.